Hello friends, this is Max Yegorov and you're watching the fourth part of the series of short videos on my successful attempt to develop a totally wild and secluded place. You might have noticed I was building my log cabin from extra thick logs down by a severe storm a few years ago. I decided to reclaim those 40 cm 15-inch logs. In this episode, I'll show you how I topped the side log walls with gables. Last year, I've used up all of the logs that were laying close by. Luckily, because I chose to install 2 doors, I did not need any more full-length logs. It is a lot easier to deliver the shorter log segments to the cabin's construction site, even if they are further away. You have to be extremely careful when cutting log segments from a falling tree. The trunk of the falling tree that is still attached to the root ball is under a lot of stress. I've had 2 root balls snapped to an upright position with a large bang when cut loose. In other words, working with a fallen tree that is still attached to its root ball is a lot more dangerous than when cutting a vertical live tree. You can be buried under it. I always try to cut the top and large lower limbs off of the trunk to reduce its inner stresses, which makes working with it more predictable. If the tree trunk is suspended on both ends, you have to be careful not to get your chainsaw bar stuck in the trunk. It is better to make an extra few relief cuts to prevent it. The trees that are half fallen are the most dangerous, and it's best to leave them alone. However, in my case, such tree is too close to my cabin, and I will have to take my chances. I cut the top off and tried to pull it down using a pulley system, but the roots proved to be stronger than me. So I had to cut the tree at the bottom and dropped it on rails so that the log rolled to the cabin on its own. This log is not thick enough for the walls, so it will be used for making rafters and other roof members. As you can see, I prepared material for the roof construction in advance. There are 3 full layers of logs in the cabin. Now I'm going to level the last layer on the side wall so that it can join with the roof properly. It is easier to use an improvised guide made of 2 boards screwed to the log. Such method worked well for me. Note, when you lay logs, you need to alternate the placement of the skinnier tops and thicker bottoms so that all of the cabin's corners end up being the same height. As you can see, my last layer ended up being straight and perfectly horizontal. It is important to measure everything thoroughly before making a cut. I used the guide to cut the gable for the lateral log rafter that will support the roof. The top part of this rafter will be supporting the ridge log. I don't know precisely where the ridge log is going to be, but it is an important 3-way joinery and I have to get it right. The cabin's roof will be insulated with sod and the roof's pitch cannot be too steep, otherwise the sod can slide down. So I had to lower the ridge log a little and trim the structural members accordingly. Oh well, that's what happens when you don't have a blueprint of your house, but rather building it by guess and by gosh method of calculating. Mistakes are inevitable then. In the next episode, I'll focus more on the roof construction and will show you how I made the boards for the roof members from the harvested logs. Meanwhile, I'll use them as a scaffold as I can't install the logs from the ground anymore. I'm just not tall enough. What made things easier is I could carry the shorter gable logs on my shoulder. I ended up ditching and replacing the short section I'm carrying now because it was visibly skinnier than the other gable logs. It's a pity because I've already cut a tongue on it. As I was looking for the right log section, it got rainy, and I ended up using a section of this stump. Once I debarked it, I noticed some superficial mushroom growth, but the log itself is clean on the crosscut, and it will last for decades as long as the roof doesn't leak. I made the necessary diagonal cut right on the spot. Now it will be easier to carry to the construction site. I brought this spare 450mm chainsaw's bar along with the standard 350mm bar, which is 18 and 14-inch bars, just in case I need to cut out a bar from the log. You would just disattach a stock bar from the chainsaw and leave it in the log while using the saw with a spare bar to quickly release it. Even though this section is only 5 cm 2 inches thicker in diameter, it is noticeably heavier than the first one. My gate is not quite as springy now. In the background, you can see a blue tarp canopy. I was absent for only an hour at the cabin's construction site, but found the tarp torn through the reinforced seams. A human couldn't do that. A large animal wouldn't be able to get through the fallen trees to the construction site. I didn't hear any noises. The question is, who did it? A bushcraft mystery. The top gable log has the most complex shape. Before installing it, I cut the jamb and stop for the door from one piece, just like I've done it on the side jack studs. I'm using a homemade log dog. It has to be long to be able to hold these extra thick logs. This log dog has 4 butts, so hammering it in and out of the logs becomes a simple task. As demonstrated before, I will use a simple guide to make 2 precise cuts for the door's jamb and stop. It is easy and safe to do it this way prior to its installation. Okay, the last Gables log is ready to be installed on the vertical jack stud's extra long tenons. Because I decided to reduce the roof's pitch, I will have to make another cut, thus trimming the tenon's length. Again, that's what happens when you don't have a blueprint of your house and building it as it goes. The last Gables log is installed, and now I'll drill a hole for the door's top pin hinge. I'll have to leave this log with the whole roof to install the front door later. You will see the power of a simple carpenter's wedge in an upcoming episode. There won't be much interior work done with the cabin. I will only smoothen the rough edges a little. It is such a pleasure to work with my draw knife and other hand tools. Had the hand saw been half as productive as the chainsaw, I wouldn't have used the chainsaw at all. Unfortunately, my summer vacation is only a month long, and using only the hand tools would prolong this project significantly. The second gable is symmetrical, and having gained experience, I've built it twice as fast. The only difference this time is that I made diagonal cuts on the last gable log while standing on the ground, which was easier and safer. To prevent the logs shifting, I hammered in wooden pegs in every gable's log, while on the medial ends the gable logs join the doorway members by tongue and groove. Also, the 4 lateral log rafters were pegged into the top skewed gable logs to hold the lateral ends together. I'm building an extra strong log cabin. In the next episode on my cabin's construction, I'll show you how I made an old-time sod roof. If you like this video, perhaps you could share it with your friends. Let good people watch good videos. This is Maxi Gorov, St. Petersburg, Russia. P.S. Question. What would you guys use to lift the header and roof for my pin-hinged doors installation? A wedge or a lever?